You gotta figure it out.
We just pray that they get things in order.
Tenants of a downtown high-rise are facing a second night without lights or heat. Residents of 260 Wellesley Street are in the dark. Their electricity, water, and heat supply all shut down. This after a pipe burst in the 33-story apartment building yesterday. Ali Chiasson joins us live from the building. And Ali, you just got briefed from property managers. What did they have to say?
Chris, we now know it's going to be at least another 24 hours before the power comes back, and that's because they need the electrical room to fully dry before they can even run the diagnostics here. Now, this does mean that the property management company is keeping with their original promised timeline of having the power completely back by the end of this week. But Chris, for the people who are choosing to stay here tonight, those people who know exactly what happened in the building next door at 650 Parliament after that fire happened this summer, well, their anxiety is intensifying as each hour passes, and today they let us in to show us how they're living. Can I help you with a jug of water?
We met Nikisha Garrett carrying heavy bottles of water up to her apartment.
Does that man have a headlamp on?
There's flashlights that they've given us, little flashlights.
Oh.
That's what you're seeing.
We pass people in the hallway eager to spout off.
See the light working. Okay, you see those? They're supposed to work for 48 hours. They work for 30 seconds.
There's absolutely nothing from the management. There's just silence.
She's one of a number of people choosing to hunker down and wait out the repairs.
Were you here last night when it happened, when the power went out?
I was here, yeah, I was actually just coming in. I'm just going to put the 3 bottles, the large ones that I've just bought, into my bathroom. Ultimately, it's just pouring it down the toilet so that it's able to flush. These little bottles of water I've been using just to brush my teeth, wash my face with, wash our hands with. We even bought baby wipes because that's how we're showering right now. Really embarrassing, but it's something to remain clean.
How long do you think you can sustain this, brushing your teeth with water bottle, using, baby wipes?
I'm hoping it's just the 2 to 3 days because that's mentally all I have to put up with this.
So this is what it's like with the camera light on. If we turn it off, you can't even see your hand in front of you.
There are lots of newcomers in this building, elderly and families. Security guards go floor to floor doing wellness checks.
10 days old.
Yeah. Brand new. Everything we've been knowing, we've been finding out through the news, although we live here and we're experiencing it.
Because then you have to think about your neighbors at 650 Parliament, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're like, is this going to happen to us too? So
that's what so many are wondering. Property management says the power will be back up and running by the end of the week.
And I think to myself, did that pipe burst because of negligence, or was it really just an unfortunate thing that happened?
We took that man's question to the property manager this afternoon. Have a listen.
But there's nothing to suggest that there's negligence or malpractice in what's happened. It really is some very bad luck. I mean, we had a fire at 650, we have a flood here, we have a frozen pipe at 240. I don't particularly relish having to face you guys and explain this because I think it's a difficult thing to explain. But it's not of our making, and it's certainly not, as far as I've been told, have anything to do with the upkeep of these properties.
So there is no evacuation order for this building, although Toronto Fire and the property management company is recommending that people find another place to stay, perhaps staying with family or friends. But Chris, as we know, not everybody has that option. For those people, the Red Cross has set up a shelter at the community center just around the corner from here. That is also where there's going to be another community briefing tonight at 8 o'clock. Chris.
Wow, another tough night for those families. Thanks for this tonight, Ali.
It was hard. I feel they tried to break us apart.
They couldn't even give us that decency of respect.
Forced to move and fearing for their safety, this father and daughter are now fighting to get tens of thousands of dollars from their former landlord. It's money that the Human Rights Tribunal says they deserve after enduring months of abuse and harassment. Lisa Shing has been digging into this story for us and joins us now. So, Lisa, this building that we're talking about, it has quite a reputation.
It really does, Chris. And if you Google 500 Dawes, a lot of reviews and photos come up. It even has made several lists of worst places to live in the city. It got so bad for this one family that they ended up moving out, but they also filed a human rights complaint. Over morning tea, Tiara Ramnarine Smith and her father Craig talk about how different life is now.
It's like night and day. It's like night and day.
Tiara has been taking care of Craig for a decade, ever since her father suffered a traumatic brain injury during a car crash.
I was a lot slower after. I started stuttering for a very long time.
I had to help him with tying his shoes, doing his shirt buttons.
Their problems came to a head in 2015 when they moved into this building in East Toronto. The Human Rights Tribunal found their landlord, Carolyn Goodman, tried to evict them multiple times because of Craig's disabilities.
She just tried to destroy me.
Goodman put up these flyers warning the neighbors about Craig. They started harassing him. He even had beer bottles thrown at him. Craig was on the street for days after Goodman had police kick him out.
I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. I'd never been to a homeless shelter before in my life. I had to spend nights. I spent a night or two there. I had no food on me.
I was scared. I was pregnant, staying there by myself.
Almost a year in, Tiara and her father moved out.
At what point did you say enough was enough?
About 6 to 9 months after we moved in. It was just too much. We couldn't take it anymore.
With the help of legal aid, they filed a human rights complaint. Turns out Goodman has a history of judgments against her. In one settlement, it took her years to pay, and only because the courts garnished her rental income. Tiara and Craig won $60,000. Their lawyer has been trying to collect for 6 months. How difficult is it sometimes to get that money?
I think it can be very challenging for them to collect. It's a long process filled with red tape.
In Ontario, the only option to collect that money is through the courts. It's complicated and expensive.
If just the landlord has been really mysterious about their identity and their basic information, it's a bit of a mystery in how a lot of tenants are supposed to actually get that money.
We have some questions for you. CBC contacted Goodman, but she refused to comment. Craig and Tiara know they might not get that money for years, but that wasn't why they filed the complaint.
What were you hoping to get out of the human rights complaint decision? Somebody had finally acknowledged what had happened and that it wasn't okay.
So you spoke to this landlord. What did you learn about the landlord over the course of the story and the coverage?
Well, Chris, the decision actually talks about how she went with multiple names, so it was really tough to pin her down. And a few years ago, another human rights complaint involving a 17-year-old girl who she refused housing to. That girl was in the care of Children's Aid. So in that case, she had to pay $10,000. And we also found out that there were several other landlord-tenant board complaints against her.
Wow. Thanks for digging into this for us tonight, Lisa.
Absolutely.
You have no heart anymore. This city used to have a heart.
I'm wondering whether you've taken this message to federal counterparts to come to the table and pay their fair share.
Is that your job or mine? It's your job to get the feds to the table. It's not my job.
Wow, a tense meeting at City Hall today as councillors and activists clash over how to best solve Toronto's housing crisis. We'll bring you that story later in the show. Well, you probably don't need me to tell you, but it was a slippery commute today as a mixture of rain, snow, and freezing rain came down. It's been a roller coaster of a week with it feeling into the -30s with the wind chill on Monday. But despite the slushy weather today, temps have gotten warmer, and that's making some people do a little dance, not letting the wet weather rain on their parade. Colette Kennedy's here with us now. Colette, I don't know if I would be dancing in the street like that. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the weather that was making him dance that way either, but it's all good. Yeah, I'll tell you, there have been so many components to this particular system. Milder air, that's nice. Messy, however. And now we've got to talk about these winds, too. These are the forecast wind gusts as we head into these evening hours. So just letting you know, over the next hour, some of the strongest winds we'll be seeing, mostly from the south to southwest, from Burlington around to St. Catharines, where some of those gusts will be over 70 kilometers an hour. Still strong as well for the rest of the GTA, but not as strong. And then by about midnight or just after, we're actually going to see those really backing off. But it's in the meantime, because of those kinds of conditions, we are looking at a special weather statement from Environment Canada, and some of those gusts in some places locally could be there over 80 kilometers an hour. So that's one issue tonight. The other being still seeing drizzle and scattered rain showers throughout the area. It's trying to make its way east. It is moving, and over the next couple of hours moving out, we'll probably see a bit of a break in the precipitation, but then it will return in the overnight hours. It's rain now when we have temperatures like this, 6 degrees in Toronto, 5 in Kitchener, 5 in Hamilton as well. But what you see is what happens later on through the overnight. The rain moves out, but we get a bit of precipitation coming back. Could be a bit of a mix, but likely it's going to be a bit of light snow, maybe a centimeter or so before this thing moves out by tomorrow morning. And then we'll still see some clouds with more breaks as we get into the afternoon hours. And then some lake effect is going to set up a little bit later in the day, so we could see a few flurries. Overnight tonight, 0 as this moves through. Tomorrow afternoon, -1. Enjoy that. Not as mild as today, but enjoy that, because much colder air is going to move in after that, and I'll tell you all about that coming up, Chris.
It feels like pretty much anything could come next. I'm not sure.
That's right, and it might. I'll tell you.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
I've written a new children's picture book. It's called Hey Granddude. The illustrator is Catherine Durst, Canadian girl.
Canadian Girl. That was Paul McCartney telling us about his new children's book, and he just let the whole story slip there. We have a Torontonian who is involved. We'll introduce you to her later in the show. But first to Venezuela now, and a day of chaos and questions about who is actually in charge of the country. Huge anti-government demonstrations in the capital were followed by the opposition leader declaring himself interim president. Juan Guaidó took a symbolic oath in front of thousands of supporters who were already in the streets demanding President Nicolas Maduro step down. Guaidó is calling for fresh, fair elections, and the U.S. and Canada are endorsing him, having already called Maduro's second term in office illegitimate. Maduro is not backing down, though. From the balcony of the presidential palace, he said the opposition is attempting a coup and that Venezuela is breaking diplomatic relations with the United States. There have been protests around the world, including right here in Toronto. Anti-Maduro demonstrators are taking over Yonge Dundas Square tonight in solidarity with their Venezuelan counterparts.
It's so emotional that we cry today. This is the beginning of the end.
We all are asking to this government to move on and give us, our people, the things that we want. We want a new Venezuela. We have a rich country that could be even better than it is right now. It's the worst part in his history. So we're here like trying to celebrate like our democracy and asking them to move on.
In that large crowd of demonstrators, Conservative MP for Thornhill, Peter Kent, was also there to lend support. Meanwhile, unionized auto workers continue to block entrances to GM's Oshawa headquarters tonight.
General Motors is saying what we are doing here is illegal. Let me tell you what is illegal. It's illegal when you take $11 billion from Canadian taxpayers and then announce the closure of an assembly plant that has been in this country for over 100 years.
You know his face well by now. That's Unifor President Jerry Diaz speaking to demonstrators this afternoon. As Megan Fitzpatrick tells us, they're planning to keep protesting until GM reverses its decision to close the Oshawa assembly plant.
The GM workers got here before the sun came up this morning. They're out here in the pouring rain holding their latest demonstration in protest of GM's decision to close the Oshawa plant. This protest, though, specifically targets GM's headquarters in Oshawa. They're blocking the road into the office, and they've been doing that since about 4 or 5 a.m. this morning. These workers say they feel betrayed by the company, that there is no justifiable reason to close the plant in Oshawa. They don't buy the company's arguments that there's no business case to keep making vehicles at this plant here. And some of the people at this protest here came from beyond Oshawa too. Some people work for companies that feed into the plant. They say they're going to be affected by this closure as well. These protesters say they are fighting for their jobs, and they want to get that message across to GM corporate headquarters today.
We're getting the message out that we're not going away, and not only us workers are sticking together, but our community and Canadians from coast to coast. The support has been absolutely fabulous, and getting the word out that people understand that this is all due to corporate greed.
GM says that this protest, however, is not affecting their operations. They made alternate arrangements. Many employees who work at the office here are today working from home. They say that this is illegal activity, though, that this is harming third-party businesses and that can't be condoned. They also point to the information on their website informing people of what they are doing, they say, to help the employees who are due to lose their jobs later this year. These protesters, though, say they plan to block this road indefinitely. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Oshawa.
The provincial government is backing down on legislation that would have opened the province's greenbelt to more development. The provision was buried in an omnibus bill tabled on the legislature's final scheduled day last December. It would have allowed municipalities to ignore some greenbelt rules as long as development projects created a certain number of permanent jobs. During the spring election campaign, Premier Doug Ford promised not to touch the greenbelt. That promise came after video surfaced in which Ford talked about opening up the greenbelt to developers. She admitted to sexually abusing a cancer patient. Now this Toronto doctor has had her license revoked. We'll have more on that story after the break. Police are asking for your help in finding the family of this homeless woman who was struck and killed by a garbage truck last week. 58-year-old Hang Vo was allegedly sleeping in a laneway off of University Avenue last Tuesday when the truck reversed into the street and struck her. She was pronounced dead at the scene, and investigators have been unable to locate her next of kin. They're hoping that this photo will help them find them. Anyone with any information is asked to contact police. A Toronto doctor has had her license revoked after admitting to sexually abusing a cancer patient. She was an oncologist at the Rouge Valley Cancer Care Program and began a relationship with the patient while continuing to treat him. Farah Morelli was at her disciplinary hearing and has more.
Just 2 years ago, she was the keynote speaker at a fundraising event for the Scarborough Rouge Hospital's Cancer Care Program, attended by political heavyweights, including former Premier Kathleen Wynne.
That positive energy is so important.
Today, Deepa Sundaralingam was reprimanded by the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario for what it called disgraceful actions.
Do you have any comment on today's decision?
No comment. In 2015, Sundaralingam started a relationship with a male patient right after she diagnosed him with cancer. The disciplinary panel heard today what began as flirting evolved into sexual touching and intercourse, sometimes at the hospital. All the while, he remained her patient. 7 months later, Sundaralingam broke it off, saying she was having an affair with someone else, and later said she couldn't see him or treat him. The patient said in a victim impact statement read by a lawyer for the college, quote, "She was the person who both managed my health and provided me with emotional support during cancer treatment. I was physically emaciated and emotionally exposed, and the loss of a critical relationship defeated me. I feel abused, and it's very difficult as a male to come out and say that about a female." The college council asked for her license to be revoked, saying, "You have before you a detailed account of serious sexual abuse of a patient, an oncologist engaging in sexual relations with her vulnerable, newly diagnosed cancer patients." After a short deliberation by the panel, Sundaralingam stood in front of them as it told her she was losing her license. "Your actions are abhorrent and reprehensible," they said. Even if revocation was not mandatory, the committee would have made such an order. Sundaralingam's patient was inside for today's proceedings, but we can't identify him because of a publication ban. On top of having her license revoked, she's also been ordered to put up a security of $16,000, and that's to cover any therapy that the patient might need down the line. Farah Morelli, CBC News, Toronto.
An Arizona nurse has been charged with sexually assaulting and impregnating a patient with a disability.
I know our officers took this crime to heart. This is a facility that you should be safe in, and someone wasn't.
36-year-old Nathan Sutherland is a licensed practical nurse. Investigators say he worked at the Hacienda long-term health care facility in Phoenix. The victim is a 29-year-old woman who, according to her family, suffers from significant intellectual disabilities and is unable to speak. She gave birth to a boy last month. Her family says they will take care of the child. Canada's spot between a rock and a hard place in the battle over Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou has grown a little more snug, all because of comments made by Canada's ambassador to China yesterday. The U.S. wants Canada to extradite Meng, who was arrested at Vancouver's airport last month. China wants Canada to release her, and now Ambassador John McCallum has volunteered his thoughts on how Meng might avoid extradition. Julie Van Duzen is following all of this for us from Ottawa tonight. And Julie, what exactly did the ambassador have to say?
Well, Chris, it's not only what he said, which was basically a lot of frank talk for an ambassador, but it's to whom. Now, he said it to a group of Chinese speaking reporters in Markham, a suburb, well near Toronto. And he basically said that the Huawei executive, Meng Wanzhou, has a strong case to fight U.S. extradition. And then he went on to kind of lay out how she could do that. Now, if you recall, the U.S. claims Meng committed bank fraud and found ways to violate U.S. sanctions against Iran. Now, Canada arrested Meng on December 1st in Vancouver at the request of the U.S. government. And ever since then, it's been very problematic in the sense that Canada has really been treating this whole case with kid gloves, saying that, look, we have an extradition treaty with the United States. We're just basically following procedure. It's been all very carefully crafted. And now along comes Canada's ambassador, John McCallum, jumping in and giving his opinions on how she can fight extradition. Take a listen.
I think she has quite good arguments on her side. One, political involvement by comments from Donald Trump in her case. There's the issue of Iran sanctions, which are involved in her case, and Canada does not sign on to these Iran sanctions.
I can only imagine how that's playing out in China, but what kind of reaction is it generating here at home?
Well, the Canadian government has had rather a muted response to this, and certainly not embracing his comments. The bottom line is some people have actually said the comments were mind-boggling, including a former ambassador. You know, the thing is, Canada has always made a point since this December 1st arrest not to get involved in the merits of the case. And saying that it's, you know, an independent judiciary that's going to resolve this. Of course, the Canadian government does have to sign off at the very end. But, you know, when asked today whether he agreed with the ambassador's comments, the Prime Minister was actually at an event, he wouldn't say. Let's take a listen, followed by Andrew Scheer, the leader of the Conservative Party, who says McCallum should be fired.
We will make sure that the rule of law is properly and fully followed. That, of course, includes the opportunity for her to mount a strong defense.
This is something that could very well be seen as interfering with the independence of a judicial proceeding that's happening here in Canada.
So, Chris, the U.S. has yet to file documents laying out its case for extradition. The deadline is next week. And January 30th, and it actually says it will make that deadline. And then a whole new chapter in this very problematic case begins.
What a long and evolving story.
Absolutely.
Thanks for this tonight, Julie.
You're welcome.
Now that Brampton has opted in when it comes to retail marijuana, some city councillors here want to know where those shops are going to be going and how many could potentially be coming here. I'm Greg Ross. We'll tell you what the mayor of Brampton is saying, and we also reached out to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario to try and answer those questions. We'll have that story coming up.
Plenty of questions remain about the province's rollout plan for retail pot and how cities will be involved in the process. In Brampton, they waited until the 11th hour to decide that they're in when it comes to bricks and mortar pot shops. Greg Ross is live for us tonight in Brampton. And Greg, you talked with the mayor and some city councillors as well. What did they have to say?
Well, I can tell you, Chris, that the mayor says when it came right down to it, the city based its decision to opt in on funding that was being offered by the province for policing. But there's still plenty of uncertainty among city councillors in terms of where these pot shops are going to be going and how many of them are going to be allowed to come here to Brampton. Now, there are only currently 6 retail pot licenses in all of the GTA, but with so many of the other municipalities around here already opting out, including Mississauga, which is right next door, some city councillors here are wondering if Brampton is going to be one of the top options for these license holders, and if that means that there's going to be multiple shops coming here to Brampton.
Take a look at where we are in terms of our standing in the Greater Toronto Area. Do we want to be known for marijuana shops?
I think that is the concern moving forward when Ford government decides to open the floodgates to the 17,000 other interested store or shop owners. That is the concern. Where are they going to go?
Frankly, the way the province has set it up, if a municipality opts in and one opts out, the municipality that opts in could see all the retail locations on the border of the municipality that opted out.
But Councillor Rowena Santos, who actually tabled the motion to opt in, says the city does have some control here. And she says that they're going to do everything they can to try and regulate this in terms of where these shops are going to be allowed to go and how many of them are going to be allowed to come into the city. Because she says they don't want to become known as a city for marijuana.
We have 15 days to actually look at a retail license application, and they have to meet a certain number of requirements and standards in order to operate in Brampton. So there is a catch-fall in all of this.
So, Greg, do we know if any of the 6 lottery winners for retail cannabis have said if they will open up shop in Brampton?
Well, I did actually talk to one of those lottery winners who is actually from right here in Brampton. He says it is his intention to open up a shop here. But I also reached out to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario today. They tell me that so far, none of those lottery winners in the GTA have submitted a request for a retail store authorization. Now, they have until Friday to get that request in, and that request would have to include information about where they intend to open up their location. The locations would also have to meet a number of other regulations, including stores can only be located within communities with a population of more than 50,000 people. Stores must be at least 150 meters away from schools, and they can only be located in areas that have been determined as mixed zones by these municipalities. Now, that lottery winner that I spoke with today tells me that he is in the process of securing a lease on a location here in Brampton, but he says, part of the application process is to make sure he has that lease in place. And Chris, he tells me he is frantically trying to make that happen by Friday.
All right, thanks for this tonight, Greg. So when those legal pot shops open in Ontario, there remain questions about whether they'll be able to keep their shelves stocked. One industry insider is telling CBC News the shortage of legal cannabis that has been seen across the country could drag on for years. This despite the fact that licensed producers are scrambling to keep up with demand. The CEO of Toronto-based cannabis company Oxley says the impending legalization of pot edibles will divert more product away from store shelves and that the shortage could last until 2020. This next one is a story we've been following for the last couple of months. Thefts at the LCBO. Yesterday, Toronto police and Peel police arrested 2 men for shoplifting at the liquor store. The 2 men were arrested after separate incidents at liquor stores in the GTA earlier this week. On Monday, Peel police arrested a 25-year-old man after he allegedly placed several bottles of alcohol in a duffel bag and left a Mississauga store. And yesterday night, Toronto police arrested a 48-year-old man after he allegedly picked up several bottles of whiskey and proceeded to the exit without paying for them. These arrests come after multiple thefts have been reported at numerous LCBOs throughout the city. Last week, the head of the union that represents LCBO employees said the liquor store losses amount to tens of millions of dollars a year because of thefts. In response, the LCBO said it would be increasing spending on security. Chinese restaurant and business owners are fighting back after a rash of robberies and break-ins in Markham and Richmond Hill. As Adrian Chung reports, the businesses are calling on police to step up.
They've had enough. Chinese business owners say they've been looking over their shoulders, wondering when they'll get hit next.
Customer give us a call. We want to make a reservation, but how saved for your restaurant?
More than 20 Chinese business owners and victims met with York Regional Police, all with a crime wave on their mind. Police say 11 break-ins and 2 armed robberies were reported in the last 2 months. Detectives say at least one of the robberies are connected to ones reported in Toronto.
So we can go back now and say, hey, how do we improve on our proactive portion when we come to patrolling not only our communities but our business community also.
Mary Huang owns a restaurant and has been a victim of several break-ins. She wants answers for her staff, who often work late into the night.
We think about and the employer safe and the client is safe. Yeah, that's most important for us.
Chinese restaurants and businesses are on edge in Markham. This restaurant has been broken into twice this month alone. And further down on Fairburn Drive in that block of businesses, another 2 have been hit. That fight or flight instinct came to a head on Sunday when a restaurant owner, after being robbed, chased down the armed suspects, rammed his car into theirs, as police eventually tracked down and arrested one man. Many at the meeting asking just how far can they go to protect their business.
We want our people to be vigilant, but not vigilante. Do not take things in your hands.
Instead, police are telling businesses to beef up their security systems and that more officers will be patrolling. Adrian Chung, CBC News, Markham.
He's evaded police for more than 5 years, but tonight, John Brown is behind bars.
This guy's a bad guy. He's got a violent history. The extent of this crime was, in my opinion, sadistic in nature.
We first told you about John Brown back in 2014. Then he was wanted for holding a woman captive for 3 days. She was able to escape in Bluffers Park. She said Brown and 3 women had beaten her repeatedly. A few months later, Brown's car was spotted, leading to a police chase, ending when Brown's car crashed into a building. Brown did get away. He had been on the run ever since, allegedly using wigs and turbans to disguise himself. But last night, officers arrested John Brown near Kingston and Midland after a short pursuit. He's now facing 8 charges, including kidnapping, forcible confinement, and assault. And police are still searching for the driver of yesterday's vehicle, 35-year-old Rosemary Oleski. Hashtag sponsored, hashtag ad. You've probably seen influencers on Instagram gushing about their favorite products. Now there's a crackdown on in the UK, making it clear these are basically commercials.
It's the same like any TV advertisement. Doesn't make a difference for me.
If they want to say they're getting paid, fine. If they don't, then that's also fine.
More on the changes that could be coming to your feed coming up. Fiery exchanges and frustrated residents. That was the scene at City Hall as Mayor John Tory's executive committee voted to move forward on an affordable housing plan. There's hope the program will boost the city's much-needed rental stock. But as City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly explains, some say it doesn't go far enough.
I'm here again begging that this council do something. You have no heart anymore. This city used to have a heart.
I'm wondering whether you've taken this message to federal counterparts to come to the table and pay their fair share.
Is that your job or mine? It's your job to get the feds to the table. It's not my job.
There were fireworks and few empty seats at today's executive committee meeting on the mayor's Housing Now program, a plan to turn city-owned sites into affordable housing.
Our housing plan will jumpstart sustainable and equitable development near transit.
City staff say the plan could help build roughly 10,000 residential units. 1/3 would be regular rental housing. Another third would be affordable units with lower than average market rent. The 11 potential development locations are all across Toronto. This is one of the sites, and it's currently being used for parking near Islington Station. As you can see, there are hundreds of cars here today. Some of the other sites are also parking, a fire station, a construction site, and some spots that the city says are just surplus land.
It's critical that we build more affordable housing in this city.
But this councillor says what's missing in the plan is supportive housing.
The mental health services and health supports to help people transition out of homelessness.
We need to move so much more quickly.
Others question what affordable even means.
The Housing Now strategy defines affordable housing as no more than 80% of market rent, which, given where market rent is sitting now in Toronto, that's not affordable housing.
Despite the questions, a report on how to implement the plan received the committee's unanimous support.
City staff have assured me and Deputy Mayor Bylaw that we can actually have shovels literally in the ground as early as next year on some of these sites.
Now council will get the final stamp of approval. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
He said he was drawn to my drawings right away. I think he said that he really loved the characters, especially the little kid characters. Like he said, they were very sweet and maybe reminded him of his own grandkids.
She got a ticket to draw, and it came from none other than Sir Paul McCartney. More on how this Toronto illustrator got the gig and what it was like to work with the music legend. That's coming up next. It's an opportunity of a lifetime. Toronto illustrator Catherine Durst collaborated with Paul McCartney. Yes, you heard that right. On his first children's book. It's called Hey Granddude, and the bedtime tale hits bookstores in September, but the cover was unveiled today. I went to Catherine's home studio to talk about working with the music legend.
It's about a character called Granddude who represents grandfathers everywhere. The illustrator is Catherine Durst. Canadian girl, and as you can see, she's brilliant.
The agency I'm represented by is called the Bright Agency, and their main office is in London, UK. And so they were approached by Puffin, the publisher, and they had asked me to do some samples for a gig potentially with Paul McCartney, which was super exciting. So I sent them some character drawings, and they forwarded it to the publisher, and Paul got to look at them, and he told me that he liked mine right away.
Wow, I'm sure you've done so many submissions, but that moment when you were contacted by your agency and they said, we want you to submit something potentially for Paul McCartney, what was going through your head?
It was crazy. I was actually really busy with another project as well at the time, but I was like, well, I can't not do the submission, so I put aside some time and yeah, did a submission. I worked really hard on it, and yeah, paid off. He told me later that he said he was drawn to my drawings right away. I think he said that he really loved the characters, especially the little kid characters. Like he said, they were very sweet and maybe reminded him of his own grandkids.
Over the course of working with him, what was that like for you? Because you're a fan of Paul McCartney's.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Yeah, so that was, yeah, it was very unreal. Just and it was really great. Like the publisher let us have some direct contact. Like we got to talk over the phone, which is actually pretty unusual. Like a lot of the times the publisher will act as like a liaison between the author and the illustrator. But for us, yeah, they let him give me a phone call, and we chatted a lot about his vision for the character, his ideas for Grand Dude, the main character in his book.
Not only did you get to collaborate with him over the phone, but you got to go backstage to one of his concerts. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so on the day that he wanted to announce the news of the book last September, he was actually on tour in Canada. So the publisher set it all up, and I got to meet him backstage. And when I was there, he had copies of my drawings in front of him, and we got to sit and look over some of the sketches for the book together. So yeah, it really did feel like a collaboration with him. The thing I noticed about him was just his passion and his excitement about a project. And yeah, and he was just like so excited about it and very, very easy to work with. But he also gave me a lot of creative input too. Like he wasn't pushy. He just like gave me his ideas and said, I love what you do, so just go for it.
And how much of a turning point has this been for your career? Because I can just imagine
well, already, like the book's not even published yet, and it's already gotten such a great response from people. So I'm hoping it'll do really well, and I hope people like the book. And for me, the best part about it is that it'll lead to more work, and it just ultimately means I get to do more children's book illustration, which is what I love to do.
All right, Colette, I've been excited to show you this all day. She's such a talented illustrator, so I brought her a photo of you that I got from yesterday here.
Are you kidding?
And she did an illustration of you. Let's take a full frame and show everybody.
I cannot believe you did this for me.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, I love it.
And you know what she told me? She said it is easy to draw someone who isn't very attractive because because they have like something that's defining about them. But she said that someone that was as attractive as you are was very easy to draw.
I don't know if you can see under all this TV makeup, but I'm actually blushing right now.
I got you.
Thank you. I feel a little bit warm.
You're welcome.
That was really, really cool. And now I can say the illustrator who also did Paul McCartney's book. And I can't wait to come into the newsroom and check that out in person. All right, lots for you to check out here in terms of what's going on with our weather. So much happening over southern and eastern Ontario. For now, the special weather statement for the areas you see here in gray and extending back towards Windsor through the GTA. It's more about the winds now with this particular system. So into the afternoon hours, evening hours, they've been picking up a little bit, but getting stronger later on this evening, and some of those gusts could be 60 to 80 kilometers an hour. I do want to point out for eastern Ontario, it's more than just the winds. Into the nation's capital, we're talking about a winter storm warning. There's freezing rain being reported, the temperature -7 in Ottawa at the moment. So some very nasty conditions after all that snow and then getting this freezing rain in there too. We'll look at the radar for you in just a moment. Toronto, 6 degrees, Mississauga, 6 degrees, 5 in Hamilton, very mild readings, and that's why the precipitation we are seeing at this point here is coming down as rain showers, getting a little bit spotty. Further east, that's where we're really getting into that through the Ottawa Valley, seeing that freezing rain mix through there and then turning back over to snow. For us, we're going to kind of see a bit of a break later on this evening where the precipitation ends, but the clouds hang in there. And then what happens as a little bit of a mix and a little bit of light snow is going to start to come back in. So maybe another centimeter accumulating before this moves out into tomorrow morning. But parts of, say, Hamilton over towards Niagara and even Pickering, Oshawa, areas like this could still have a little bit of light snow for the very early part of the commute tomorrow. Plus, we've got colder air moving in. So any of these wet roadways, we are going to start thinking about it refreezing. Not so much tomorrow. It's not as cold, but certainly as we get into tomorrow night, and much colder air is going to be seeping in. You see what I mean overnight tonight? We got to get this mix out of here. Then tomorrow afternoon, our temperatures not too bad yet, still tiny bit above seasonal readings. Hoping to get some sunny breaks for you. And then into the 5-day forecast, it's tomorrow night. The colder air comes back. It is going to stick around. And as we go into the weekend, a couple of times we may see a little bit of light snow, that potential Saturday night into Sunday, and a better chance for some snow on Monday. Chris, I can't wait to come see that in person.
I have your illustration waiting just for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colette. One of Toronto's big summer music festivals is hitting pause. There will not be a field trip festival this year. Organizers say they are going on hiatus with, quote, the goal of returning in 2020 with renewed vision and continued commitment to an unparalleled gathering of music, art, comedy, food, and drink and family. The first field trip festival was held in 2013. We'll be right back. Britain's advertising authority is getting tough with social media influencers. Some celebrities have been posting images of clothing, sunglasses, and other products on platforms like Instagram without making it clear they're being paid to do so. And the UK wants that to end. Kayla Hounsell has more from London.
It's pretty common, these so-called social media influencers, people who have a lot of followers online who are often paid to post content about certain products. The problem with that, says the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, is that it's not always clear when that content is an advertisement. So they're cracking down on that and asking these celebrities to be very clear and direct about their language. And they say it's not enough to see buried halfway down in a list of 30 hashtags. We've all seen that. A word like hashtag sponsored. They say the language needs to be direct and noticeable from a quick glance, and they're asking these celebrities to use direct words like ad or advertisement to indicate when they have been paid to post that content. I say people might feel duped or misled if they've been following someone or taking a recommendation from someone they admire and then they find out that it was a marketing ploy. So far, 16 celebrities have voluntarily agreed to change their behavior and change the way that they post online. So we thought we'd ask some people here in London how much they pay attention to what these social media influencers are posting and whether they care if they've been upfront about whether their content is an advertisement. Here's what they had to say.
It doesn't bother me either way. Like, if they are getting paid, fine. If they want to say they're getting paid, fine. If they don't, then that's also fine. Yeah, I think they should definitely have to post if it's an advert.
Why do you think so?
That's a bit disingenuous. I mean, you can tell it's an ad anyway, but I think they definitely should have to, and it's wrong if they don't.
It's the same like any TV advertisement. Doesn't make a difference for me.
So a variety of opinions there, and so far none of these celebrities that have been named have been charged for this kind of activity. As I say, they've all agreed to change their behavior voluntarily, but the UK Competition and Marketing Authority is planning to send out some more warning letters about this kind of activity, and if celebrities don't comply, they could face hefty fines or even prison time. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, London.
So we have a Toronto illustrator who illustrated for Paul McCartney, and I got her to draw this picture of our Colette. She did.
Sweet.
She even signed
nice
it just for you.
So I have this, and I knew
Isn't that
exactly
sweet?
what I was wearing the day that you must have shown her the picture from.
And she did a really great
It's
job.
amazing. I'm getting this framed, you know.
Please, I hope so.
Thank you. You can sign it too. Oh, we've got some weather to talk about still. We do have a little bit of showery activity moving through, and then we'll get a break, and then we get into a bit of light snow overnight tonight in a few areas like east and to the extreme south of the Golden Horseshoe. Could even see that into tomorrow morning before it's out of the way. So colder air is moving in. It's not too bad tomorrow yet. It's kind of a transition day.
And when we talk about bizarre weather, take a look at this. This is our skyline tonight. The fog has moved in. CN Tower is gone. And that's it for us tonight as well.
Disappeared in the mist.
Bye-bye.